Well, g'day curd nerds. Welcome to another cheese making tutorial. Today we're making White Stilton with apricots. So White Stilton, as opposed to normal blue Stilton, is a twist on the traditional recipe. It does not have Penicillium roqueforti added to the curds or to the milk at the start of the cheese making process. So it gives a very rich and creamy cheese without that bite from Penicillium roqueforti, the blue mold culture. I've also taken the liberty to add some dried apricots to the curds because I purchased store-bought cheeses like this and they taste pretty good. However, I think those store-bought cheeses may have a little bit of sugar added to them. I'm not sure how because they're quite sweet. However, I'm hoping that the sweetness from the dried apricots come out in the final cheese. Anyway, enough waffling from me. Let's get on and see how we made White Stilton. So start off by sanitising all of your equipment, lay it out on a clean tea towel and have all your ingredients ready. I've got my cream and my dried apricots, and the milk I'm using today is Inglenook Dairy unhomogenised but pasteurised milk. It's whole cow's milk. So the ingredients you'll need is 7.5 litres or 7.9 quarts of whole cow's milk. I'm using pasteurised unhomogenised milk. You'll need 500 millilitres or 2 cups of whipping cream. It's about 35% fat. I'm using 1/8 of a teaspoon of mesophilic starter culture. You can use Sacco MO30 or choose it MA11. I'm using Mad Millie mesophilic starter culture that comes in a sachet. Also need 1/4 of a teaspoon or 1.25 millilitres of calcium chloride diluted in 1/4 of a cup of non-chlorinated water. 1/4 of a teaspoon or 1.25 millilitres of single strength rennet in 1/4 of a cup of non-chlorinated water. You'll need 2 tablespoons of non-iodized salt or cheese salt. You'll also need between 1/2 and 1 cup of roughly chopped dried apricots for this recipe. So start heating your milk up, and while you're doing that, start up a little steamer. I've just got some water in the bottom pot and the steamer pan on the top one there. And I'm going to place my dried apricots in there. I'm going to steam them for 15 minutes. I want to maintain their sweetness and keep whatever sugar is there in the apricots. So there they are 15 minutes later, nice and plump and sanitized, I would hope. So start by heating your milk up to 30 degrees Celsius or 86 degrees Fahrenheit. Now I'm transferring it over to my sink where I've got my precision cooker or sous vide wand in the water, just maintaining the temperature of the milk. Now it's a little bit high, so I'm pulling a little bit of water out of there. So because I've preheated it, I don't have to wait ages for the water bath to heat the milk up. So pop the lid on just until it comes up to temperature, and then it took about 15 minutes to get spot on to 30 degrees Celsius. Okay, then add your starter culture, just sprinkle it over the surface of the milk. And then put the lid on and allow it to rehydrate for 5 minutes. After 5 minutes, just give it a quick stir. Then pop the lid back on and allow the milk to ripen for 60 minutes or 1 hour. So 1 hour later, just take the lid off and then give it a quick stir. You'll see a lot of the cream has floated to the top. Just stir that back in through. And now we're going to add the calcium chloride to the milk. This helps to add in more soluble calcium to allow the rennet to set properly when using heat treated milk. And as this milk is pasteurised, it has been heat treated. We're going to add the rennet solution now. Just pour that in whilst you're stirring. And then stir that for no more than 1 minute. So if you're using flocculation, use a flocculation multiplier of 4. I'm just going to allow it to set for 90 minutes using the cheats method today. So 90 minutes later, I'm going to check for a clean break, and that looks good enough to me. So now I'm going to turn the sous vide off and drain all the water out. And just set up my area for the next stage. So I've got a butter muslin lined colander, and I'm going to use a skimmer, and I'm going to cut off slices of the curd and transfer it into the butter muslin to drain. So just one slice at a time. Now you may find the pot starts to float on the water bath. That's no big deal. Now I did intend to use the pot to keep the curds warm, but I thought, well, I'll just fold the cloth over and I'll place the lid of the pot on top of the cloth. Now we're going to allow that to drain for 90 minutes or 1.5 hours. Oh, hello, Hamish.
Dad, making cheese, Dad?
Yeah, I am, Hamish.
Say something for me.
Okay, mate, will do.
Later, curd nerds.
See you, Hamish. Okay, so take the lid off of the curds that have now drained a little bit, and what we're going to do is just check them. And they have drained a little bit, just making sure there's no hairs or any fluff on the curd. Now we're going to tie opposite corners to make a bag, which I've just done there with some simple granny knots. And I'm going to hang the bag up to allow that to drain a little bit further. It's a little bit too moist at the moment. So I'm just using a broom handle, and I've placed that through, and I'm going to drain for 1 hour or until the dripping stops, just over a pot.
Dad, what you doing?
Not much, mate, just calm down. So as you can see, it has now drained. So I'm going to place the curd bag on a board. So before I do that, I'm just going to twist the top. It's just a quick twist to make sure the curds stay in there. It's a bit of a knot type thing. And then place another board on top. Now it can be bigger than this one if you've got a bigger one. And then place about 4 kilograms or 8.8 pounds on top of that board, and then press that overnight, which is approximately between 8 and 12 hours. And you'll find that loses a fair bit of weight. Eight hours is probably preferable. I think I pressed mine for about 12 hours. So remove the weights and the board, and you find you get a bit of a pancake of curds. As you can see there, it's fairly thin. So we're going to untie the bag. I'm going to break the curd slab into thumbnail sized pieces. Just doing that with our finger and 2 hands and thumbs. Make sure they're about the size of your thumbnail. So I'm breaking them up into a stainless steel bowl which has been sanitized. Now we're going to add the salt. It was 2 tablespoons of non-iodized salt. Now I'm using coarse salt here, not the fine one I normally do, just because I'm going to mill it into the cheese. Now add the cooled apricots and then mix it all together well with your hands. Make sure your hands are nice and clean, of course. Just like mine. So there's apricots and salt all mixed through the curds. Quick wash of the hands. And we're ready to go. So the board was a bit dirty, so I just gave it a quick clean with some paper towel and some vinegar. Now the basket I'm using is a new one. It's a 150 by 140 millimeters, which is 6 by 5.5 inches. And I'm going to fill the basket with the prepared curds. Now the curds are fairly dry. They should be a little bit moister than this, so like I said, I pressed it for 12 hours between the two boards, probably a little bit too long. But anyway, top with the follower. You'll see how I fix this a little bit later on. To top with the follower, and we can apply 2 kilograms of pressure because it's so dry. But if your curds are fairly moist, then flip them once a day for 4 to 5 days, and it should knit together okay. So I had to end up putting 2 kilos of weight on top, just the milk bottle, 2 litres with water. And they were fairly dry, so at the end of the about 3 days I decided, so it's really crumbly. It's never going to knit together by itself. It's done its best job, but because it's got fairly large chunks of apricots as well, I decided to press the cheese. Now I just didn't want it to fall apart into 1,000 pieces. Very similar to my Shropshire Blue. Smells amazing. So quick wash of the basket and the follower in hot water because it was all sticky and all the curds were stuck to it. So I'm going to use them again in a second. Just trying to reshape the cheese a little bit with the bits that fell off. So gently removing the mat that it was all sitting on, and then using a sanitized loose weave cheesecloth, I'm going to wrap the cheese up like I would a normal, say, cheddar style cheese, and then press it using my trusty spring cheese press. Okay, so pop that into the basket, fold a bit of cloth over, put the follower on top, and then go and get your sanitized cheese press, which I just have handy in the background there. And we're going to press this at 22.5 kilos or 50 pounds for 12 hours, just so it would knit together. That's why the pressure was so high. It's because the curds were really dry after 3 days of turning and them not coming together properly. Anyway, so remove the cheese from the press in the basket. And then grab a cheese board and roll out a sheet of aluminium foil and remove the cheese from the cheesecloth. There it is in all its glory. It looks quite good. It's knitted together fairly well, but a little bit crumbly there. It's not going to have a lot of moisture, which is okay by me. Most of the White Stiltons that I eat store-bought don't have a lot of moisture in them anyway. Anyway, so just place it on its side and you're going to roll the cheese into the aluminium foil, just making a protective barrier so mould doesn't grow on it. We don't want it to become a blue Stilton now, do we? So just fold that over. Aluminium foil's fairly forgiving, and you can tightly wrap it and then bang it on so it's all sealed at the bottom. And then fold it over on the top and do the same. Just roughly pat that down. There we go, lovely. It's all holding together very well. So we're going to place the wrapped cheese in a ripening box with a mat, and we're going to cover that up. So we're going to place the ripening box in the cheese fridge and ripen it at 12 degrees Celsius or 53 Fahrenheit at 85% relative humidity for 3 months, and we're just going to turn it over weekly for even ripening. Anyway, back to Gav. So as you saw, the pressing was a little bit off. I was supposed to turn it and it was supposed to naturally come together over 5 days, but the curds were too dry. So that's why I ended up pressing it at about 50 pounds or 25 kilos for about 12 hours. And that seemed to help it knit together, and then I wrapped it in foil and it's aging in the cheese fridge. So it should be all good. Anyway, if you liked the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already subscribed, please do so, and you'll be informed about more cheesy content that I produce on the channel. Well, thanks for watching, Curd Nerds, and I will see you next time.